Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This video has been taking the rounds in the social media group that I'm a member of. And many people think it's a novel idea. The gentleman here, who is the president of the movement, empowerment movement, is Mnangagwa. He's a familiar figure. He was a gentleman who challenged Mnangagwa after the coup, saying that it was unconstitutional. And they got into trouble for that. But now he's coming back, launching this movement. What is novel about this movement is that he is arguing that he is not going to challenge Mnangagwa on the political front. He wants to be allowed to have the space for him and his friends to do something on the economic front, to alleviate the suffering of the millions of Zimbabweans. Let's just listen to a short clip of what he's saying.
We also have former leaders and some misinformed G40 remnants on social media who day in, day out complain about the ongoing corruption and human rights abuses. My take in this is these guys, they were once in power and they abused it, left, right, and center, at every opportunity that they got. They harassed and killed people when they had the power. They were also chief human rights abusers in their own wicked ways. Now they are away from the feeding trough. They have graduated and awarded themselves the moral compass to say this government is corrupt. We know it's corrupt, but the people who are saying it, they don't have the moral compass to say that. My thinking is these people, they are not at all concerned about the ongoing corruption or human rights abuses, but their minds tell them that the people who are doing it are not the ones who are supposed to be doing it. You know why because they used to do it and they didn't see anything wrong. Now Mnangagwa's administration is doing it. We need to be faithful to ourselves. They themselves are the ones who are entitled to stealing and abusing others. But when it is done by others, it becomes wrong. We are not saying what is happening now is correct, but people have to be genuine in their intentions. There is absolutely nothing that is happening now that didn't happen when President Mugabe was in power. Sorry. It's only that people have very short memories. It's the system that is rotten, not necessarily individuals. Mnangagwa and these people, they simply inherited a system that was there. It is upon us, as the people of Zimbabwe, to ensure that the system is changed, not necessarily individuals. To me, President Mnangagwa and his Vice President Chiwenga, they are just two sides of the same coin. If a coin had three sides, President Mugabe, Mnangagwa, and Chiwenga, they are all three sides of the what? Of the same coin. Removing Mugabe and putting Mnangagwa, removing Mnangagwa and putting Chiwenga, we will not change anything. That is.
Well, on that point, one agrees completely. But what he goes on to explain earlier on is that what he's launching is an empowerment movement. He has apologized to Mnangagwa for embarrassing him post the military coup. And now he wants to make peace on that front and be allowed so that he and his group can do something to economically empower the ordinary Zimbabweans who are suffering. All I can say to him is it's a novel idea, totally naive, and it will never work. And it is simple to explain why it will never work. Zanu PF is well aware that as much as people like him who today say they do not want to be involved in the politics, they just want to concentrate on the economic front. If he was successful, come the elections, he will be using the economic success he has achieved to launch a political challenge to the regime. Zanu PF will be painfully aware of that. And this is the reason why the regime will never allow him or anybody else to play any meaningful role on the economic or political front or social front that will change people's lives. Zanu PF believe they have the divine right to rule the country. And anyone who thinks that the regime is going to give up that right is naive. I would like to remind everybody that Zanu PF has never held free, fair, and credible elections ever since the country's independence. As much as the call before independence was one man, one vote, as we got nearer to 1980, Zanu PF realized that one man, one vote is all very well, but if it's allowed to be exercised fully, they could not be sure of their own power. In 1980, as much as Mugabe and his colleagues agreed at the Lancaster House that all freedom fighters and operatives will be withdrawn from the field during the campaign period leading to the 1980 elections. By the time they got back to Zimbabwe, they had made up their mind that they were not going to withdraw all their operatives to assembly points as agreed. So a number of their operatives were left in the field, and they were given the instructions that their message to the people would be, if Zanu PF does not win the election, the Bush War would continue. In other words, the commitment to one man, one vote was out of the window. You are only allowed to have a vote if Zanu PF at the end of the day is the clear winner. That has been the condition of elections in Zimbabwe. The only one time when Zanu PF's hold on power was seriously threatened was in 2008, when SADC had forced the regime to implement a number of very significant electoral changes, which made it very difficult for Zanu PF to rig those elections. And as the March 2008 election results started coming in, it became very clear that Zanu PF had lost resoundingly. Mnangagwa is the one who mobilized the Joint Operation Command, JOC, which composed of the top brass in the army, the police, the CIO, and the prison services. And their task was to take over from SEC, take over the whole electoral process from SEC, stop them announcing the results. And what followed the next 6 weeks was results being announced in bits and drabs. But the most significant thing that happened during those 6 weeks was that Tsvangirai, 73% of the vote was whittled down to 47%. Enough to force a runoff with Mugabe. And during the runoff, Zanu PF launched Operation Mavoterapap, a military-style operation whose primary purpose was to punish the Zimbabwean people for having dared to reject Zanu PF in the March vote. This is the reason why Zimbabweans have been stuck with Zanu PF these last 45 years. Zanu PF rigs the elections. And anything that threatens Zanu PF's iron grip on power will not be permitted. This novel idea of launching an empowerment movement, which from Sengezi's own promise is not going to be a political player, at least not for the time being, is a non-starter. Zanu PF will know that if this movement was a success, if it was to change people's lives, the movement would be a launching pad for political challenge on power. And for that reason, the party would never allow the movement to engage in any meaningful economic activities that will change people's lives. It was Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who once said that seek you first the political kingdom, and the rest will be given unto you. He was absolutely right. One of the biggest problems that many Blacks have made, not only in Zimbabwe, in other countries as well, is to think that they could achieve economic empowerment when they did not have any meaningful political power. That will never happen, because those who steal and maintain the stranglehold on the political field, in this particular case, denying the ordinary people their meaningful say in the governance of the country through free, fair, and free, fair, and credible elections. They will see to it that there is no economic empowerment which they don't control. Because they know that if those individuals are economically empowered, they use that as a stepping stone for demanding their political rights too. And as long as they've got the political power, they've under no obligation to deliver on the economic front. That is why we are in this situation. The Zimbabwe economy is in total meltdown. Zimbabwe is a failed state because we've been stuck with a corrupt, incompetent and tyrannical regime for 45 years and counting. Yes, Zanu PF leaders are incompetent, and ordinarily, if Zimbabwe was a healthy and functioning democracy, people will remove them from office, elect somebody else. The opportunity for meaningful political dialogue and democratic discourse will force people to focus on what the voters, the electorate want. But when you have taken that right away from the electorate, they are no longer accountable to you who is in power. That gives you the extra latitude and confidence to do as you please. And this is one of the reasons why corruption and mismanagement has been rampant. Mnangagwa has spent billions of dollars bribing various players to make sure that he wins power. He has not bothered to bribe the electorate by delivering on good policies and economic prosperity, because he knows that the electorate do not have a vote. So he has concentrated instead in bribing those gold mafia guys. They help him in his fundraising, bribing the top brass in the army, the police, the CIO, who have been heavily involved in making sure that Zanu PF rigged the elections. Judges, ZEC officials, etc., headmen, chiefs, the list goes on and on. I think people of Zimbabwe, as much as hard it is to confront Zanu PF on this issue of implementing democratic reforms to ensure free, fair, and credible elections, people should not make the mistake of thinking that somehow we can get away with it. If we allow the regime, Mnangagwa and company, to stay in power, rig the elections, he will allow us the opportunity to look at our economic needs. That will never happen. One of the things that has actually happened is how Mnangagwa and Zanu PF has kept the rural people deliberately poor for Zanu PF's own political gain. Before I close, I'll just play a video clip of Margaret Dongo, one of the Zanu PF stewards, talking on that very issue.
They have wrong priorities, especially the current government. How can you go and build an airport which services a few people, and the majority are the elite and the so-called investors? Look at the rural. I made you come to interview me because I wanted you to have the experience of the roads that we are using. If we go today to our hospital there, you feel pity with that's a hospital in a rural area. If we go to our clinic, you feel pity. We have no piped water here. Do you know the reason why the rural people vote for Zanu PF? One, they're intimidated. Two, the policy is that the rural people should remain poor. and subservient to the government. They should remain poor, because if they remain poor, they continue singing the song for their master. This is why these people have been impoverished. It's for a reason. Because at the moment, if you economic empower these people, they'll go out of hand. Zanu PF will never have control over them.
Message that Mnangagwa and his colleagues should take home. Their movement to empower the ordinary Zimbabwean will never be successful, because Zanu PF will never allow anybody else to make any meaningful change to the lives of ordinary Zimbabweans. And politically empower the people themselves, plus Mnangagwa and company. The truth of the matter is we have to fight for the political kingdom. We have to fight for free, fair, and credible elections. Zanu PF does not have the divine right to govern the country. That should be the basis of our political fight. One man, one vote was not just a catchphrase. It is at the heart of good governance. The right to a meaningful vote, to a meaningful say in the governance of the country, is at the heart of good governance. Think about it. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.